Hi, my name is Heather Forrest. I'm a storyteller. I'm an author of folk tale books, and I'm also a musician. And I am delighted to be with you today to tell you some stories. So gather round and listen for a spell. I have some stories to tell. Listen to these stories with imagination. The tales you hear will be your own creation. Watch the pictures you see in the world behind your eyes. Gather round and listen for a spell. I have stories to tell. The very first story I have for you is an old folk tale that comes from Eastern Europe. I have made it into a book, too. There are lots of ways to tell stories. This book has a title. It's called A Big Quiet House. It's retold by me, Heather Forrest. That means that the plot, the what happened of the story is very old. I'm telling it again. I'm retelling it in my own words and in my own way. My version, my way of telling the story is with music and poetry. So listen in to a very old folk tale told in a brand new way. There once was a man whose house was very small. It was filled with things from wall to wall. Every day he would say, in his miserable complaining way, I need more room. I need more room. If I only had a big, quiet house, I'd make myself a bed in the corner. I'd have some peace and quiet, and I would be able to sleep. One night, as that grumpy old man lay in his bed, he could hear the gentle breathing of his dear wife beside him. And he could hear his children. They were giggling and laughing and jumping on the bed in the next room. Oh, he said, this house is so noisy. I need a big, quiet house. I want a big, quiet house. I'd be happy with a big, quiet house. I require a big, quiet house. Just then, he remembered about an old woman. She lived at the edge of the village, and she was wise. She had been alive a long time, and she knew the people of the village better than they knew themselves. I know, he thought. I'll go and visit that wise old woman tonight. Maybe she can solve my big problem. I need a big, quiet house. I want a big, quiet house. I'll be happy with a big, quiet house. How can I have a big, quiet house? So he threw off his covers, he went out the door, and he went to find the wise woman. He knocked on her door 3 times. She opened the door. Oh, she said, scratching her sleepy head, it's the middle of the night. The moon is full, the stars are twinkling. You should be asleep. I can't sleep, said the old man. My wife snores the whole night through. My children, they giggle too. What is a tired man to do? Please ladies, I have a terrible problem, and I am hoping that you will be able to solve my problem. Here's my problem. I need a big, quiet house. I want a big, quiet house. I'll be happy with a big, quiet house. I require a big, quiet house. A big, quiet house, is it? Well, said the old woman, perhaps I can solve your problem. But of course I must think of a plan. And she thought and she thought and she thought and she thought. She thought and she thought and she thought. Aha! An idea came to her, and she brightened with a great smile and said, I know exactly how to solve your problem. First things first, go home and bring a big red chicken in the house with you. A chicken? What's a chicken going to do to make my house bigger and quieter? But she was the smartest woman he knew, so he went home and did as she told him to do. He went to his barn and he found his big red chicken, and with its wings a-flapping, he brought the chicken inside of his house, and he let the chicken go. The chicken went under the kitchen table. Why did she tell me to bring a chicken in the house? Now, how is a chicken going to make my house bigger and quieter? Oh, well, we shall see what we shall see. And he climbed into his bed and he pulled the covers up to his chin. Oh, and he tried to fall asleep. But the chicken had never been in a house before. The chicken looked out from under the table, from wall to door, and decided to explore. The chicken crept out from under the table, began to walk around the room, found itself in the children's room, and began pecking them. Ooh, the feathers were flying, the children were crying, the wife was sighing, and the man couldn't sleep. So he threw off his covers, he went out the door, and he went to find the wise woman. He knocked on her door 3 times. She opened the door. Oh, she said, scratching her sleepy head. It's the middle of the night. You should be asleep. Asleep? How do you expect me to sleep? You, in all your wisdom, told me to bring a chicken into my house. Well, the feathers are flying, my children are crying, my wife is sighing. It's so noisy, I can't sleep. You said you could solve my problem. Do you realize that you just made it worse? Maybe you forgot my problem. I need a big, quiet house. I want a big, quiet house. I'll be happy with a big, quiet house. I require a big, quiet house. Oh, I can solve your problem, said the old woman. Of course I can, but I didn't tell you the whole plan. Now, go home and bring a horse, a cow, a goat, and a sheep in the house with you. That's a silly thing to do, but she was the smartest woman he knew, so he went home and did as she told him to do. He went to the barn and he found his horse, he found his cow, he found his goat, he found his sheep. He herded them into the night. Oh, it must have been a rather strange sight, marching down the road with all those animals in the middle of the night. When he arrived at his house, he pushed open the door, and then he pushed the animals inside his house, all 4. Well, there was no room in his house now anymore. It was filled with animals from wall to door. He climbed over the animals, made his way into his bedroom, climbed into his bed, pulled his covers up to his chin, and he tried to fall asleep. But the sheep had never been in a house before. They looked curiously from wall to door, and amused at being inside, they began to sing in a sheep sort of a way. Ma, 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 ma. And their singing woke up the cow, who is sort of an opera cow. She let out a long melodious moo, and that woke up the horse, who chimed in too. Neigh, neigh, neigh. And all of that singing woke up the chicken, who very quietly crept out from under the kitchen table, walked around the house, found its way to the children's room, and began pecking them. Oh, the feathers were flying, the children were crying, the wife was sighing, and that man could not sleep. So he threw off his covers, he went out the door, and he went to find the wise woman. He knocked on her door 3 times. She opened the door. Oh, she said, scratching her sleepy head. Old man, what are you doing here? It's the middle of the night. The moon is full. The stars are twinkling. You should be asleep. Asleep? I can't sleep. You told me to bring a horse, a cow, a goat, a chicken, and a sheep in my house. There's no room in my house anymore. It's filled up with animals from wall to door. And if I thought it was noisy before, those animals are singing. They're singing so loudly, the roof is rattling. You said you could solve my problem, but you have made it worse. I need a big, quiet house. I want a big, quiet house. Can you get me a big, quiet house? I require a big, quiet house. I can solve your problem. Indeed I can. I just didn't tell you the whole plan. Now go home and take out the horse, the cow, the goat, the chicken, and the sheep. I guarantee you will be able to sleep. Well, the man ran home as fast as he could, and when he arrived at his house, he took all the animals out, and he brought them back to the barn where they belonged. And he waited until all of the animals were asleep. And then he returned to his own house, and he opened his own front door. Well, now, he was amazed at what he saw. Without all those animals filling it up, his house looked so empty, it seemed remarkably bigger. He climbed into his bed. He pulled the covers to his chin. And now, without the noise of all those animals singing in the next room, his house was so quiet. He could even hear the gentle breathing of his dear wife beside him. Shh. And he heard his children. Oh, his little children. They were laughing and giggling in the next room. And to him, suddenly, those everyday, ordinary family sounds were no longer noise. They had become music to his ears. Just as he fell asleep, he made up a song to remind himself of this strange night. It went like this. Next time I moan the whole day long, complaining about what's going wrong, I'll stop and and I will count my blessings first. You know, it always could be worse. And with that he fell asleep, because now he did have a big, quiet house, a wonderful big, quiet house. He was happy with this big, quiet house. He had a big, quiet house. Here's another story. It's very, very old. It's 2,500 years old because it was made up long ago by a storyteller whose name was Aesop. Aesop made up fables, stories that have animals who talk and act just like people. Here's a very old story that Aesop made up long ago about a race. Maybe you even know this story. It's very famous. In old-fashioned words, it's called the tortoise and the hare. Tortoise is another word for turtle, and hare is another word for rabbit. Listen in to a very old story. This is a story about a rabbit who is always bragging about his feet. My feet, my feet. My feet are like lightning across the sky. My feet, my feet. My feet are as swift as the wind. My feet are as fast as a lightning bolt. No one in this forest could ever beat me in a race. Now, only Turtle challenged him to a race. Everyone in the forest gathered around to watch, and when the crowd said, 1, 2, 3, go, a very famous 2,500-year-old race took place. Old Rabbit, he ran to the middle of the road. He jumped up and down and he turned around. He said, Turtle, you haven't moved an inch. Ha! Turtle, you haven't moved a pinch. How do you expect to win this race when you're walking along at such a slow pace? And old Raggedy Rabbit stopped to rest. He sat down under the shade of a great tree. He was a little tired, and he thought, that turtle will never beat me. I have plenty of time to just relax under this tree. That's when Rabbit noticed that there was a huge crowd. All the animals were watching. He loved to talk about himself, and so he began to brag at the crowd. Can you echo back everything he said? He said, I'm a fast-footed rabbit. I'm a fast-footed rabbit. I'm gonna win this race. I'm going to win this race. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to be in first place. I'm going to be in first place. That didn't satisfy him. He started to brag even faster than that. I'm a fast-footed rabbit. I'm going to win this race. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to be in first place. He kept on bragging and bragging until he grew so tired he couldn't brag anymore. I'm more fast-footed. He fell fast asleep under the tree. And who do you imagine was coming along but slow and steady? The turtle. slow and steady, slow and steady. He walked and he walked, and he never ever stopped. He was slow and steady, slow and steady, till he came to the finish line. All the animals who were watching stared in amazement. They were surprised. Isn't that Turtle who's creeping over the finish line? Well, Turtle never does anything fast. But you know, I've noticed he sticks to things till he gets things done. Look at that. Look at that. Turtle has won. And they let out a huge cheer. Hooray for Turtle! It was so loud a cheer, it woke up the sleeping rabbit. What's all the noise about anyway? Rabbit couldn't believe his eyes. There, to his surprise, Turtle was over the finish line. After that, Rabbit had to admit to himself, don't brag about your lightning pace, because slow and steady won the race. Here's another folk tale that's very famous and has versions all over the world. This is the Russian version of a story that's very well known, that's called The Gingerbread Boy. It has a little baked character in it. And this character, well, instead of running along, he rolls along, because this character is a little baked bun, round as a ball. Here is the story of Mr. Bun. It has a song in it, and every single time the song comes around, I'm going to add a new word. Maybe you can learn the song and sing along when the time comes. An old man and an old woman, they lived in a house in the woods. And one day that old man, he said, wife, I'm hungry. Can you bake me a bun? I love when you bake with butter and jam. Oh, what a happy man I am. Please, wife, love of my life, can you bake me a bun? And she said, no. Because we don't have the ingredients. Why, there's no flour left in the flour barrel out in the shed. For in these olden times, people kept their flour in a big wooden barrel, not in boxes inside of another box, inside of some cellophane, inside of some more cellophane. They didn't have packaging in the olden times, so they had less garbage. Out in the storage shed, there was a great big wooden barrel into which they had poured a big sack of flour. But that was long ago, and the flour was just about gone. Then wife, get a knife, a long sharp one, and scrape the bottom of the barrel. Maybe you can collect your husband enough flour to make just one little bun. Well, perhaps that can be done. And so the wife got herself a knife, and she reached down into that wooden barrel, and she used the knife to scrape the bottom of the barrel. And she collected a little bit of flour that was stuck to the bottom. It was just enough to fill her palm. And she carefully carried the flour into her house, and she sprinkled it on a wooden board on her counter. It was a kneading board. And with her hands nice and clean, she poured a little cream onto the flour, and she began to mix it using her hands. She pushed it and she pulled it. She pushed it and she pulled it. She pushed it and she pulled it some more. That's called kneading. She pushed it and she pulled it and she pushed it and she pushed it and she pulled it until she made a nice round ball out of the dough. You know, if you have a good imagination, you don't even need toys. Watch this. It was so round she could even do this with it. She thought she'd better put it in the oven. So she put it on a tray, pushed it in the oven, and waited until it was done. And when the house smelled just right, she took out Mr. Bun. Oh, it smelled so good, but it was hot. So she set it on the windowsill. Ooh, to chill. Well, since you all know the story of the gingerbread boy, perhaps you know what happens next in the Russian version. Since she'd only made one, poor Mr. Bun became lonely, and so he rode off the windowsill, he rode across the floor, he rode and he rode and he rode out the door till he bumped right into Mr. Hare. Well, Hare was a rabbit. Hare had an excellent sense of smell. When Hare smelled Mr. Bun rolling by, Hare said, I am going to gobble you down. No, you won't, said Mr. Bun, because I am round. I will just roll away from you. And he did, singing this song. I'm Mr. Bun, I'm Mr. Bun. I was kneaded with cream and baked till done. I was set to chill on the windowsill. I got away from Granny, that's the old woman, and I'll get away from you. Ah-ha! And he rode 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 till he bumped right into Mr. Wolf. Now, Mr. Wolf had an excellent sense of smell, and Mr. Wolf smelled Mr. Bun rolling by. And so Mr. Wolf smelled the bun and said, I am going to gobble you down. No, you won't, said Mr. Bun, because I am round. I will just roll away from you. And he did, singing this song. I'm Mr. Bun, I'm Mr. Bun. I was kneaded with cream and baked till done. I was set to chill on the windowsill. I got away from Granny, I got away from Hare, and I'll get away from you. Ah-ha! And he rode and he rode and he rode till he bumped right into Mr. Bear. Now, Mr. Bear turned a big brown snout in the direction of the smell and said, I am going to gobble you down. No, you won't, said Mr. Bun, because I am round. I will just roll away from you. And he did, singing this song. I'm Mr. Bun, I'm Mr. Bun. I was kneaded with cream and baked till done. I was set to chill on the windowsill. I got away from Granny, I got away from Hare, I got away from Wolf, and I'll get away from you. Ah-ha! And he rode and he rode and he rode till he bumped right into Mr. Fox. Now, Mr. Fox was tricky. He didn't say what he wanted to do, like all the others. At least they were honest about it. I'm going to gobble you down. No, he didn't say that at all. Instead, Mr. Fox was friendly. charming and said, "Oh, Mr. Bun, how nice and brown and crisp you look today. Well, I heard you singing. You have a lovely voice. Could you come just a little closer and sing your song for me again?" You liked my song? Mr. Bun had just been baked. He never heard a compliment before, and he was so pleased to be praised. He rolled right up to tricky Mr. Fox and said, "Well, of course I'll sing it again. Now listen very closely, because I'm making a poem that has a rhyme at the end. Listen for the last word. It's the best one of all." And he puffed himself up and he began to sing. "I'm Mr. Bun, I'm Mr. Bun. I was kneaded with cream and baked till done. I was set to chill on the windowsill. I got away from Granny, I got away from Hare. I got away from Wolf and I got away from Bear. And I'll get away from you. Oh, that was nice," said Mr. Fox. "But I'm hard of hearing. Could you come just a little closer and sing your song again? Jump up here on my nose and sing. It's ever so much closer to my ear. And I do so want to hear." I missed that last rhyming word you mentioned. You missed the last word? Oh, it was the best one of all. And so Mr. Bun rolled right up onto tricky Mr. Fox's nose. He puffed himself up and said, "Look at me! I'm Mr. Bun, I'm Mr. Bun. I was kneaded with cream and baked till done. I was set to chill on the windowsill. I got away from Granny, I got away from Hare. I got away from Wolf and I got away from Bear. And I'll get away from you. Uh-oh, he sang. I got away from Granny, I got away from Hare. I got away from Wolf and I got away from Bear. And I'll get away from you. Mr. Bun sang his own bragging praises all the way to the bottom of tricky and rather hungry Mr. Fox's belly. I have another story for you. As an author, this is one of my favorite books of mine. It's called Stone Soup, retold by me, Heather Forrest. This story is told in many countries, and in different places where it's told, the versions are similar, but the soup has a different name. In Ireland, this story is called Nail Broth. In Russia, it's called axe soup. And in Germany and France and England and European countries, it's called stone soup. So here's my version of an old folk tale about the power of working together, the power of community. Of the 10 books that I've written, this one is my favorite. It's called Stone Soup. It's my version of a very old folk tale, and so it says retold by Heather Forrest. This story is told in many parts of the world, and everywhere it's told, it has some of the same events, but it always has a different name. In Ireland, the story is called nail broth. In Russia, it's called axe soup. In Germany and France and England, it's known as stone soup. But wherever it's told, it always celebrates the power of community, of what happens when people work together to accomplish a big task. This is the story of a town where everyone was greedy. No one in the town cared about anyone who was needy. That's greedy. One day 2 travelers came. They were poor. They were hungry. They hoped that someone would be generous. They hoped that someone would give them just a little bit of food. So they went to the very first house they saw, and they knocked upon its door. Well, the door opened, and there before them stood a beautiful woman. But she was only beautiful on the outside. For when they said, "We're hungry, do you care?" When they said, "We're hungry, will you share?" That beautiful-faced woman said in a rather ugly tone, "I don't care, I never share. Do I have any food? No." And she slammed the door shut tight. Oh, well, perhaps we should try a different house. So they walked a little farther down the road, and they knocked upon another door. Well, that door opened, and there before them stood a little boy. He had brown eyes, they were so sweet. They looked like 2 little pools of melted chocolate. But when they said, "We're hungry, do you care?" When they said, "We're hungry, will you share?" That beautiful-eyed child said in a rather sour way, "Well, I don't care and I never share. Do I have any food? No." And he slammed the door shut tight. Well, perhaps we won't eat tonight. They knocked on every door, and everyone said the same thing. "I don't care, I won't share. Do you have any food?" And everyone said, "No." Oh, well, if there's really no food in this town, what do the people who live here eat? "Why," said the travelers to each other, "if there's really no food, then the people who live here must be in greater need than we are. Maybe we should make them our magical soup." So they went to the center of the town. They climbed up on the well. They shouted out in voices to the pitch of a yell, "If anybody in this town has a big black pot, we will make the most incredible soup you ever tasted." Well, out of the doorway of one of the houses came a man with a big black cauldron of a pot. He said, "Well, here's the biggest one I've got. What can you do with it?" "Well, sir, put it down here in the middle of the road, and you'll see." And those 2 travelers ran into the forest, and they returned with logs and leaves, and they built a fire around that pot. The flames licked the sides of the pot, made it glow red hot. And then they poured in cold water, and the water slid down the inside of the hot pot, sending steam up into the air. People started gathering from everywhere. They said, "What is happening here? What is happening here? Oh, gather round, everyone. Come and see. We're making soup." But it's no ordinary soup. It's a magical soup. And we'll need a magical ingredient, which we suspect we can find in this town, said the travelers to each other. All the eyes watched as one of the travelers reached down and out of the dust plucked up a perfectly round stone. took the stone and tossed it in the air, and it landed in the pot with a great splash in the water. "Oh, I saw you put a rock in my pot," said the man who brought the pot in the first place. "I don't suppose I'll eat whatever you make in it now." "Oh, sir, you will savor the flavor. This is no ordinary soup. We're making a magical soup, and it has a name. It's called stone soup. We're making stone soup. We're making stone soup today. Stone soup, what kind of soup? Stone soup, what kind of soup? Stone soup today. And it will be nutritious, delicious, incredible, edible. Oh, but it would taste better if we only had a carrot. Too bad. Where would we find a carrot in this town? There's no food anywhere around. We know that because we knocked on every door and everyone said the same thing. I don't care, I won't share. Do you have any food? And everyone said no. So I guess we'll have to go. And we won't be able to make this magical soup, although it would have been quite tasty. Wait, a voice in the back of the crowd said, and a little hand went up, belonged to a little girl who said, "If all you need is a carrot to make your magical soup, well, I think I know where there is a carrot at my house." Oh, well then, what are you waiting for? Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. Stone soup, what kind of soup? Stone soup, what kind of soup? Stone soup today. And it will be nutritious, delicious, incredible, edible. Oh, but it would taste better if we only had a potato. Too bad. Where would we find a potato in this town? There's no food anywhere around. We know that because we knocked on every door and everyone said the same thing. I don't care, I won't share. Do you have any food? And everyone said no. So I suppose we won't be able to make the soup and we'll have to go. Wait, said a man with a deep, low voice. I just might have a potato. Well, if you do, sir, what are you waiting for? Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. And it will be nutritious, delicious, incredible, edible. Oh, but it would taste so much better if we had just a few more ingredients. All of a sudden, to their surprise, all kinds of hands started to go up in the crowd, and people began to shout things like, "Well, wait, don't leave. I want to taste the soup. I could be generous. Maybe I'll bring one green bean." And another said, "Well, I shan't be outdone. If you bring a green bean, I'll bring a sliver of onion." "Oh, you bring a sliver of onion, I'll bring a slice of tomato. You bring a slice of tomato, I'll bring a chicken wing." Before long, everybody in the whole town offered to bring one small thing to put in the pot. But when everyone gave just a little, it soon became a lot. Food was flying through the air, landing in the pot with great splashes, and everyone was saying, "Oh, this is amazing. We have so much. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. And it will be nutritious, delicious, incredible, edible." And the pot began bubbling. And the smell that came out of the pot was so good. everyone ran home and got the one thing they all really did have, their own bowl. Can you pretend you have a bowl in one hand and a spoon in the other? Serve yourself up some of that magical soup and put it in your bowl. And watch this. In pantomime, if you want to pretend that you're eating, all you have to do is put your tongue in your cheek like this. Watch. This is delicious. This is amazing, said the very first woman who tasted the soup. Why, these two travelers, they came to our little town. And they made such a good soup out of a stone. Out of a stone, said the travelers, and a magical ingredient, sharing. And if anybody ever wants to remember the recipe, they need only remember the words to this song. Every little bit makes the big bowl better. Every little bit makes the soup taste good. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. Bring what you've got, put it in the pot. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. Every bit counts from the largest to the least. Together we can celebrate a stone soup feast. So bring what you've got, put it in the pot. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. Now I need to thank you for being such good listeners. The art of storytelling needs listeners to bring the story to life inside of the world of imagination. Thank you for doing an amazing thing. Thank you all for creative listening.